this. And again, if you have questions, you can unmute yourself and ask questions. So let's see. Let me take a look at futures real quick. NQ smashing through everything I had mapped out with alerts. So I actually have it basically coming down to here, and we'll see what it does here. It should give a nice bounce once it hits this target, honestly. It may bounce out, and then what could happen with the market is we could still come down here and then do a nice uh, reverse up, put in another lower high and then higher low, and then come back down and reject. So we'll have to see what that does. There was one thing I should be in, let's see, paper trading. So one thing you can do for yourself to learn, to grow, to get better is paper trade. Um, Especially if you want to work on your entry. So there's things like, paper trading futures when the market is closed, or paper trading crypto, like 24 hours crypto is going. And so you can get into these paper trades even through TradingView and just kind of sharpen your entry skills. So as you can see, I put in a paper trade, NQ had a little pop. So I entered somewhere around here and then still just going to swing it out to get to this target here and see if I hit this take profit goal. We might get a little bounce around here too. VIX is also just up right now. We have VIX. I mean, it's up. So that just means there's a lot of uncertainty in the market. So we're gonna look at QQQ first, guys, and then we'll just kind of break it down from there. QQQ, as you can see, has a very similar chart to what I was saying with NQ. And so once it pulls back, what it's going to do is likely come touch this 200 WMA. I'm gonna watch. Give me one second. I'm gonna join. Let me mute myself for a second. I'm gonna be able to watch the comments a different way from my phone. Okay, now, hold on. Get those. Okay, so I'm still getting an echo. I was thinking I could watch it from my phone. So I still have the same target with QQQ here, and I'm just gonna look for it to hit this order block. There is a chance it could pull back to like the equal low level that's already tagged on my chart. There's two equal lows and do another sweep. But what I would likely think to play out is we get to this 200 and then we get a pop. And then so if the market really wants to come down lower after we get a nice pop, or a little bit of a trend reversal, we make that next low, if that's what the market wants to do. Remember, there's a lot of uncertainty with these job datas, with um, what else did we have? Nvidia, which Nvidia pop. But if you remember, if you kind of look back at the history of Nvidia, it will give you a little pop on earnings, but after that, it typically not too late, will. It typically will pull back after that. And that's all I remember with Nvidia. That's why I never look at it as like a special earnings. You notice it never makes those big like $40 gap ups for earnings and stuff like that. It's always like $10. That's cute, if you've been in the trade and you're leaving some runners, but trying to take a risk on Nvidia, a lot of people I hate it, but they got bull trap. So QQQ, the game plan is pretty simple. If we're under previous day low, if we're under 588, I'm looking at that as all week. So even if we give a little bit of a bounce, I don't like it unless we're probably reclaiming like 590 and trying to maybe retrace some levels up. As you know, I'll give more details on QQQ a little bit before the market opens. But here's the idea. We're coming likely here at this rate. And then once we get to this zone, this is really where I want to see if we'll get like a pop. So I'll probably just actually drop a alert here and then see if that'll play out. It, we could go lower because remember we have these equal lows. And like I don't know, y'all. I just knew 588 was on the table. And um what I thought was 588 might hold because it has held before. We've been at 588, somewhere around 588, 590, 589 at some point, and then we actually bounced. But this time it was this one, and then it was this one from here. But this time, as you can see, we've changed the character by breaking these lows. So not looking too good. What time frame for futures? You can trade futures on whatever time frame you want. If you're Most people are usually on the lower time frames. I'll be going to futures. This I say that every year, but I am gonna this time. TT. What's up, nephew?
Hello?
All right, let's see. All right, so somebody said Lyft. I seen a lot of chatter about Lyft. Actually, Lyft was looking good until all of this started happening. So,
Mhm.
okay, wait, we got somebody not muted. Thank you. Let me see. Okay, I think we're muted. If you have questions, you can definitely get off mute or raise your hand to catch my attention and in the Zoom. So
Hey,
with Lyft, hey, I can hear you. Uh-huh.
I just got a question. Okay, so I feel like APLD is coming down to $16 due to the amount of selling pressure it has, right? Also,
Mm-hmm.
with Lyft, that could be coming down lower too. And with Bitmine and Meta, I feel like Meta's coming down to 550 because of that selling pressure it has. But the thing is, with the stop loss, can I still set my stop loss on puts for it to come down? Because I feel like it's coming down to these levels.
Yeah, you should have your stop loss set. Just to manage your risk. You just have to look to see, what makes sense for a stop loss. If you're getting in today, like for example, Lyft is still in this order block. You see what I'm saying? So it still can, do some little popping in and out of it. Ultimately, if you look at almost most of these stocks, because since about in this case for Lyft, since August, it's been off of the 200. This is my 200 weighted moving average. Some people use EMA, SMA, whatever you use. Look to see where your 200 is positioned in the last time we've tapped it. Well, for me, it was August. And with this type of a pullback, and if we are going to close today off of I use the 12 EMA, we're going to close off the 12 EMA, then you got to think that Lyft is likely going to come somewhere here and into the zone and where you were saying like $16. We probably can get like a nice wick into here, and then see if we get a bounce. What we're looking to see is as everything is approaching, most likely what the target looks like is 200s, then what you want to see is a test and a bounce. And then in the case of Lyft, it did trade under the 200 a little bit here in July, but it was really just chop and then it just recovered. So you'll have to see like how that all plays out. But ultimately, a lot of stuff is losing on the one day. They're more shorter term EMAs, and then they're coming to the 200. So the trend on Lyft is still probably a reversal, as you can see. Like we have a curve here playing out, but we're just in a pullback. So it still has not really challenged this monthly candle and taken it over from May of 2022. So this stock has really just been consolidating low in a certain range for some time. And so if you get your change of character, as you can see here, if it gives you a break of structure one day on this monthly chart, then you're really going to know that it's ready to start making some bigger moves. So it is still curving up, but we're just in a pullback. Everything is pulling back right now. On the weekly chart, Lyft looks good. So this is why you have to do your top-down analysis and understand where we are in terms of the broader trend. And so on the bigger picture, Lyft has this bullish crossover that played out this summer. It tested the 200 and held and reacted well to that. And so now it's kind of just on your 12, my 12 EMA. So, again, we could get a pullback to like $16 or so. I would worry more if the trend starts to reverse again on the weekly chart for like your long-term holders. On the 1 day, yeah, we're still cooling off a little bit on Lyft. Let me look at the chat
Okay.
real quick.
Like I feel like okay, when coach says like you can make life-changing money with Lyft, things like that. Um, Me personally, I like APLD a little better because it has a $20 range that it can run, which is double the size of Lyft, right? And it's still, if I even buy shares of APLD, it's the equivalent to Lyft if it comes down to 16. But like I was talking to Alvaro and like he was saying like why add to a losing position if you're already down in it? And I asked him about if that was shares and options. He said it's both. So I mean I have leaps on Lyft, APLD, and Meta, but all of my plays are down. So it's like, should I sell all of my plays or like just add to them while they come down lower? Like what you think?
So I don't do buy sell signals because I don't want to get jumped. No, I'm just kidding. But this is what I would tell you. Strategically, you're in leaps. There's a lot of time on your side for a recovery versus people in December and January, maybe even February expirations. The market is coming down. That's just the facts of it. This is the correction that we all wanted and all needed. Too many people buying at the top. If I trade anything, it was in and out because I'm not trying to hold at the top all-time highs for a lot of stuff, or even in this case for Lyft, a territory that it needed to come back and test. So here's the thing. I agree with him. Like, why are you buying a falling knife that is very clearly in a downtrend? You have to now plan where would you buy into a particular stock. So in this case with Lyft, you know we're coming to 200, just see what it does here. Now, whether or not you need to hold and weather the storm, that's going to have to be your decision. You got to think about what you're doing with a longer term position. Most people grab leaps and they don't look at it for, unless there's some serious red flag. Yes, it's a little scary right now. And, I don't like to see stuff go deep red. I'd rather just personally find a way to reposition myself at a better time. But if you're going to average, you don't want to be averaging, let's say you were averaging right here from these pullbacks, right? Well, look what's happened.
Mhm.
You're getting more of a pullback because we still had to come back to this order block and test it at some point. So then you need to make sure that you understand where we have a lot of buyers position. In my chart is already embedded, but if you just use the plan to kind of train your eyes as to where we've seen the last reversal. It was in this zone, right? These two candles, this one signaled a breakout, and then we had this move here. So what I think will happen with Lyft is we're coming down to this 200, 17 to $16 range, and then you can see what it does there. And then that's when, somebody was asking me about the 1 hour. That's when you want to flip to like your 30-minute 1 hour and start to see if you get those trend reversals. A little bit more bullish here. So that's why I'm saying we may get some choppiness on a few stocks because they're hitting these different order blocks. Um, Will, I sorry, I saw your hand was up. You had a question?
You on the 1 day. This is this nephew. You on the 1 day. Well, I'm sorry. That 200 EMA or
Mhm.
whatever moving average that is. Is that on the 1 day candle?
The one I was looking at, yeah, I was looking at it from the 1 day. If we start losing, like for example, this is what I would think.
Hmm.
I would look at the fact that there is an equal low tagged right here. And so Lyft probably gonna just come sweep through here. And then what you might see is a bounce. But remember that bounce, if it doesn't reclaim, like if you're using a 9 from me to 12, it may come back and test it again, but then likely it wants to pull back and probably tap this 200. So you'll have to just kind of follow it from here because it actually can give you a bounce soon. It hasn't technically lost the 12 EMA. And when I'm saying lose the 12 EMA, I'm saying like It did on this candle, but then it came right back and it's wicking on it. So we'll see probably today a close off the 12. And I don't know, this just seems like an easy target right here to just let it come down to about $17. That don't mean that if you see it really giving a strong reversal that you don't position yourself or plan a trade. It may just be a short-term trade. I still think it might want to come tap down here. I just can't predict that all the way. So that's the story in Lyft. You're in an order block. There is support, and so you may actually start to see a pop around $18, 18.80, maybe even around this $19. It could just be a sharp pop and then another drops. We'll have to see how that one plays out. Almost looks like it was trying to put a double top in. And on the wolf chart, we got that arc forming, and we're starting to turn red on the 12 EMA. So if we clear this order block, I think we'll probably just have to come test the 200. One second, let me blow my
Okay.
nose. Okay, let's get back to a few that you guys are watching today.
Quick question.
QQQ. Huh?
What time frame do you day trade with?
I like the 5 minute and 2 minute. But when I'm looking for what to trade, I've probably already done a little bit of. I have like my favorites. So of course QQQ. Sometimes I do look at SPX buy and then Tesla, and I've been shorting the heck out of IBIT following Bitcoin. So when I'm trading it, I'm usually on the 5 minute for like a day trade, but I'm aware of what's already happening on the higher time frames, just so I don't get caught off guard. A lot of people when they day trade, they just get stuck just thinking that the 5 minute will do, but if you don't know the broader picture of anything, then you don't know where we're going. I always know where we're going because I'm not gonna say I'm 100% accurate. What I'm saying is I've done a lot of studies on the higher time frames before I even just get stuck looking at the 5 minute. I know what's happening already. You have to zoom out on things.
Right, right. Another question. So I feel like SPY, due to this big red candle, is probably going to come down to the 620s. I could be wrong, but that's just what I think. Like what's your position size when you're day trading QQQ, and like what's do you trade at 10 a.m. or before 10 a.m.?
For me, the 10 a.m. is I usually give the market about 15 minutes. Now I don't know what time I got in Tesla. I saw a nice move on Tesla up and I jumped in and rode it all the way to the gap fill, and then I was out of there before the reversal. But most times I find that just being patient gets you the most money. So like at least giving the market 15 minutes, sometimes 30. Sometimes the best trade might come around lunchtime if you miss. So you don't have to FOMO in to the first moves of the day. You'll catch a trade at some point. There's always a move somewhere. And then as far as position sizing, the best for me on QQQ is 1 day out, um, enough to leave a runner and ideally in the money or at the money. Hey, Celine, I
Okay.
see you have your hand up. Selena, can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I'm lower my hand. I somebody mentioned about SPX or the SPY. I just want to throw it out there. I don't know if you have any Fibonacci Elliott wave traders, but we are in wave four. And if you study a little bit about the behavior, the waves, the fib retracements, that will help you understand where we're going on the SPY, or in my case, SPX, so that you don't have this FOMO. Yeah, we are down. That big engulfing candle on the on the daily lets you know we are bullish. I'm sorry, bearish. But we have the potential to do like these 1% bullish moves and turn right back around. So just don't FOMO in just because you see red. Just prepare the best you can. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Selena. I agree. I there like today could actually be a bounce before we even get to this 200. And so that's why, don't you have to really give the market a second to tell you. I think we also have data. We'll look at that dropping. So
We
SPY,
do. We
yeah, I
got
saw
that
that.
jobs data pre-market, I think at 8:30. That will really set the tone of what's going to happen today. Is if we catch that pre-market.
Let's see. We have S&P Global Manufacturing, Global Composite. Those will move the market. That's actually coming out when the market opens, guys. So that's another reason where it may be worth it to leave some capital aside and let that 9 o'clock central data drop. We have Fed talking. There's two Feds talking this morning, and then the 9 o'clock data. So we can keep that on watch too. All right, we will run through a few charts real quick. I know we had IWM on the list, so let me push through to IWM.
Movement.
Okay, so IWM is almost already at their 200 on the daily chart. And again, they are entering in some area where we've definitely had buyers attracted to it. So if anything, maybe we'll get to that 226 target. Again, before it gets there, it could just give a little teeth pop and then give you the next drop. You got to think about the patterns of the market and putting in lower highs. So we'll see how opening does because you don't want to get jump right into to a bearish mindset and then maybe we get a pop before we get the next move down. And so I've really been working on, just trading the day trend unless you're, trying to plan like a long-term investment out. So in this case, although we're bearish, let's just see how we open and perform. Again, there is data that's going to drop and affect it. But for the most part, you can really just kind of measure your high and low candle for yesterday, and then keep in mind that it can be an inside candle for Friday. And so
Yeah, yeah, the one
as
Pat told you.
oh, I'm sorry, so
No?
not on mute. Let's get you guys muted.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to unmute yourself, you can. So it could just end up being an inside candle where we don't really do too much of anything to break the high and low of this red candle here. And when I say inside candle, just look at this candle here. We have this big sell-off, and then look at the next candle that followed before we got to pop up. And so if you see it like this, that could be what Friday is. So when you plan your Friday, one of the things I'm always telling y'all is don't go in so heavy on a Friday, especially if you've had a good week. Go ahead and take some money away if you can't, if you don't want to look at it and be tempted, make sure you're trading about 25% of what you have or what you earned yesterday and just put your money away, plan for next week. You don't have to like go crazy on a Friday, and that's how you blow all your gains for the previous days. Okay, let's see. So that's IWM. My story in IWM is pretty simple. Follow the high and low of this candle. Look for that test here and maybe into 226. And then also, uh, here's a tip that you probably all know I like to sh shout out is just look at your pre-market levels too. So go to your extended hours, pop in. And so let's see. Thursday's trading hours versus where we were pre-market. So this zone right here is going to be pre-market. I'm just going to put a little box, a little line here. This would have been your pre-market low, the lowest point of pre-market before we open. So as you can see, even with IWM, you got a nice opening trade, lasted about an hour, and then look at the sell-off. So if you caught the reversal, I traded to where most were at pre-market low. And then when I seen that my trades were still continuing to go down beyond pre-market low, because once you get a break of pre-market low, let's say you didn't even touch it until it broke pre-market low, you still can get a nice trade out of that any stock. So keep an eye on pre-market levels as well. And then one other thing to just a tip for you is I was on a coaching session last night and what I was explaining is sometimes we get a little too, we think it's too good to be true. And so a lot of people were selling too soon But you got to think about something in your trades, and it's like the most basic concept. Have I even reclaimed my EMAs, right? Or in the case of a bull move, have I lost my EMA? So even when you get this like move right here, and we test an EMA like my 12 EMA, if we're not breaking above it, why should I sell? Maybe I trim here, but why should I sell? Leave a runner, and then you would have captured the whole move. I'm not saying be greedy. What I'm saying is don't panic sell thinking it's too good to be true. It just was good. So when it's good, take the good. Slide your stop loss. If you see these type of moves, what you're looking for next is an actual recovery where it recovers and then likely comes and tries to challenge the 200. Just simple things. Sometimes you have to train your eyes to see it very simple. I don't need to panic sell because of this, because it still had this to do, because it never reclaimed my 12 EMA. My 12 EMA, because it's dynamic, remain red, which for me, just as a visual learner, helps me to see it that way. All right, somebody had coin in the chat. We'll look at coin, we'll look at Uber, we'll look at a few others before we wrap up. Don't sell if yeah, I agree. Yeah, a lot of people, I think y'all thought it was too good to be true. And sometimes, like I said, it's just good. You see that when it's making bull moves too. Like if you haven't lost your EMA, why are you panicking? All right, so coin is actually I looked at coin last night with someone. Coin was in a very solid downtrend. I didn't trade coin, but I did trade IBIT following that Bitcoin just looks weak. And coin right now is in a position to do what we call a sell side liquidity sweep. That's when it's going to sweep under this order block that I have here around let's see. It's based off of this candle, so around 235.29. We could sweep under that from where it's at. And then when it sweeps under that, what you might get is a quick sweep, and then, people will kind of FOMO into some puts again, and it may actually do a pop. So be careful with coin where it's at right now. It may come under a little bit, may give you even 230-ish, but at some point I'm thinking this one might do a bounce. If it doesn't, that just, validates we still are coming down a little bit lower. It is already off the 200. So if you start seeing stuff like QQQ losing the 200, this is losing it right here and pulling back even more. You got to start looking to see where would be the next area that we had some demand. So when coin challenged this candle here, which was a very bullish candle from June, that's crazy. We're back at June and May prices now on coin, and I think even like crypto. So when it challenged this candle, look, when it came back to this area, look at the bounce it did before it actually started to get weaker in this zone. So this was probably ideally an area of demand at one point that we just started to lose. And so now we're challenging an area right here. And coin is giving a very funky cross right here. This is the debt cross, so we don't like that. Coin doesn't look that great right now. You don't want to front run this on leaps. In fact, I think I just found a gap in the chart. And so, look at this gap. What if we come to close this gap before we do anything special? So just keep that in mind. The closer we get to the gap, the more I do believe we'll fill that gap. Does it happen in one day? Maybe not. But if they're getting closer and closer to a gap, there's a chance they could actually at some point come close that gap. So you might want to keep that on watch for coin if you're looking at it, and then see if it gives you a bounce around there. So that's like all the way down around 213. So that's coin. Yes, I'm gonna post this on my YouTube channel. So you'll have to go to my YouTube channel, JustNet, JUSTNETTE, to follow this, to see this replay. Demonor is probably telling the same story as everything that is attached to crypto. Let me go back up a little bit first and catch some of these early call outs. APLD, PayPal, Tesla.
Question, Renette, with Tesla, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so Coach said that it was supposed to come down yesterday. Like I was just looking at the Discord. He was saying it's supposed to come down. I've seen people saying like they was losing money because they thought it was going to come down, but it went up, right? So how can you like make your own decisions based off of that? Because with Coach being the expert that he says, I'm just assuming that it'll hit his targets because he says that he's most of the time spot on. You know what I mean? But it reversed. So like, do you know how or like why it reversed?
Okay, so
Because
you're
I'm thinking about
saying
trading.
it's coming. You were assuming like a call out was that it was coming down. Did a certain price get called out for where it was going?
I think he said like 410 or 415 or something like that.
Are you saying up or down? Because it did come down. Tesla came down yesterday.
Okay, yeah, it came down, but it came down after it ran up. So yeah.
Yeah, but that's manipulation. Remember, the market was really just doing a little pop because of Nvidia. So I said a lot of stuff was coming down. I've been saying QQQ had to come to 588, but I knew once it has to wait for Nvidia to kind of do its little thing, get out the way. But look what Tesla did because I traded the gap up. It just came close a gap and then it rejected almost like right at this gap. So I think I shared my exit on Tesla was just this gap fill. I wasn't about to get greedy and think we were on some type of big bullish move. Now, if price starts to hold at this level and starts to retrace back up in this zone, I would have held, but it really just did a manipulation, grab that liquidity. So everybody that was holding bullish on Tesla yesterday got trapped. But it did come down. It came down pretty hard after that rejection. So sometimes, like I said, on the way down, if you understand like market structure, you're gonna get some green candles. If you look at it from let's look at it from the 15 minute. You see, so yeah, I did all of this, and then this strong pullback because all it did was just came close that gap, which to me, once it rejected at that gap, I think Tesla may not be ready to come up for a little bit. And so, we just plan where we think we want Tesla to come. Look at just like every other stock, it likely needs to come test the 200. Tesla hasn't tapped the 200 since August of this year. And so maybe that is the play, but is it just going to be a clean shot down? No, you might get some green days and then, we might put in another lower high and then another lower low. So is the verdict still out there that Tesla is going to cool off from here? I think so. For your own informed decisions, what you want to start looking at is that higher time frame. And then so even if you see like you might see the 15-minute get a little bullish. But ultimately, if you know on the higher time frame, you're seeing a reversal like on the 1 day, until that 1 hour gives you the signal that, yeah, for me, the 1 hour, I don't know what everyone else watches, but for me, the 1 hour telling me that we're truly reversing, the 1 hour is just bearish. We've been under the 200 on Tesla since 10th. So remember, under your 200 on any time frame is overall bearish. And so so even if you get like these little green pops, if we don't ever come back and reclaim that 200, that's already a clue to me we're not ready. But then in this case, we had some little pops above my 12 EMA and we had that yesterday, but when we rejected and then we lost the 12, then in theory, we're probably about to come challenge this candle here around 384. So, you have to zoom out, look at the bigger picture, and then you zoom into those shorter time frames and you really plan your entries there. You can't go long and bullish if we didn't get our trend reversal signal. So, yeah, it's great to be buying a dip if that's what you want to do, but I find it very risky.
Okay.
YouTube is just net, and I think it'll have Pretty Hustle on there too. Okay, let's look. So Tesla, story on Tesla, bearish. Maybe it pops today, but again, on the 1 hour, it's still under my 200 and my 12. It is probably, if it closes off my 12 EMA, then again, I think the test, although we may get some bounces, will be to the 200 or somewhere in this zone around 370. Um, Uber. I think it's time to kind of watch Uber because one, a few things are playing out. We're getting that crossover we call the bearish crossover. That could still play out. But I'll be looking to see if they try to really just fake us out with a quick liquidity grab right in this zone, like it's about 80 or so. Yep. And then get a bounce. So Uber, I'm definitely actually going to put an alert about right here. So it could still come down to about $80, but really pay attention to Uber because I don't know. I hate that they're getting pulled back so hard, but let's just see what happens when it gets to closer to $80. So I'll start watching it. I don't think I'm gonna short it, but yeah, I won't, but I'm gonna watch when it starts to get about 82, $80 in that range, and then I'll probably start to see if we can get some type of reversal on Uber. But right now we're getting that ugly crossover. And so if you just kind of want to see what that is in the past, let's see. It happened here, which was a very short cross, and it look how it did a nice snap of liquidity all the way down to some very nice demand areas, and then it bounced real strong and went on a clean bull run. So we'll see what it gives this time around. If it ever gets down to $60 again, that's definitely still buy zones. But I'm not going to predict that. Let's just see what it does if it comes down to 80, and then we'll take it from there. Just add some more shelf levels down, maybe like to 75, 74, um, 77, see where it goes. But if it starts to get down here, you want to be ready to buy some shares. This is the thing, when you're going long, look to at least try to buy long in these type of zones. And if you see a stock weak in these zones, like right here, give it time. Find those reversal signals, like I said, going to your 30-minute, going to your 1 hour. APLD, AMD. Let's look at AMD. I gotta close this Zoom at about 7:15, guys. Gotta get my little people up. All right, so this the scary story on AMD, which, again, I'm gonna just keep echoing. Everything looks like it's trying to come down to these 200s because we've been on such a crazy run. So if that happens, AMD probably has to come on and close this gap around 170.68. Now I looked at the monthly chart, and even if it closed this gap, hold on 1 second, I gotta put my pro on. I wanted to see where that puts us because if it comes and fills this gap, I really am ready to go long again on AMD. I'll have to again follow like the shorter time frame reversal, but that puts us close to the monthly 12 EMA and testing that. And if that holds, I'm not mad at that because remember, AMD had some news around this time that caused this big run. I think it was doing partnerships and all kind of stuff, and then earnings. So if we let AMD cool off, it is going to be worth our while to start looking to position ourselves in AMD. And so even if it does come back, if it can hold the 12 on the monthly chart and start to give a nice bounce, I'm not mad at that. The gap is what we have to watch now on AMD because the first watch that I had on AMD when I was shorting it was 224. We lost that. And then I had the target of I think it was like 206. And we did that as well. I think 206 was coming from the 4 hour time frame and getting us, yeah, to this 200 on the 4 hour. So we're here, which means that we could get a day where we pop back up. And so if it pops back up to maybe like 213 or so, see if it rejects somewhere in this range of 213, 220, and then you're likely going to start getting another pullback and then potentially a gap fill. It is worth following. From here, because we're on a 200 up to 4 hour. But with everything pulling back in the 1 day, signaling that it's just getting weaker off the 12, then we just have to see where we land. There is that gap fill. So you don't want to get caught trying to go long from this pullback and then we come down and fill a gap all the way at 170. Is it a clean shot down? I don't know. Their ATR right now is aggressively tagged. and it's at a $15, that means it can move up or down $15 within a day. So do what you will with that. I do like AMD, so we'll see. PayPal. That's what I mean when I say look for those deep green zones, nice, attractive buy zones. And so, okay, let's say you don't have the wolf chart, right? Get this green candle. It is clearly an area of buyers in this zone happening here. So, with that being said, this is where you probably really want to pay attention to PayPal. Everybody was buying PayPal at the top going long. The conviction was for me was if I'm patient, I'll be able to go long on PayPal at a much better price, even if it takes me 3 months to get to that price I want on a pullback. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. The market isn't going anywhere anytime soon, so let's just wait. So um, let's let's look at PayPal. Yeah, this seems to be a sweet spot that PayPal is approaching. One second, let me blow my nose again. Sorry, my allergy. Okay, so yeah, this looks like a sweet spot where PayPal is targeting. So you got some lower levels around 55 and 57. You know, that's with no indicators. You can just see by these candles. It's a little, you can just see by these candles where people continue to pick up PayPal. So that could still play out again once we start hitting these zones. So maybe around 55, 56, but PayPal is in a pretty sweet spot. And so if it doesn't break the low of this most recent low, which is this little wick right here at 55.85, I mean, maybe it can wick a little bit under it, but if we can hold around here, PayPal looks like it can start to be the one to reverse for us. So yeah, I would set some alerts on PayPal right here. This is what I mean when you start to look. If you're just gonna want to plan your go longs and or buying shares would be better. Um, Ideally, right in these zones would be where you want to start picking up.
Quick question, and
Yeah.
so when Chris says like, okay, you need to buy this stock, nonstop, this, that, and the third. Does he mean that like buy shares? Because like what I'm assuming is like say APLD right now it's in like $20, and if I just wanted to get a couple shares here and then dollar cost average a couple shares, if it comes down to 16, I'll just go heavier there and just keep riding it to wherever it goes, right? Like, should I do it like that and stop doing my options? Like, what you think?
Yeah, I think sometimes everybody gets stuck in the options, but the real winners are everybody that's accumulating for their long-term investments. So Uber, I mean, sorry, this is PayPal, but PayPal, if this is one that you believe in, you got to believe in what you're buying for long, for one, because you're saying I'm going to hold this. Why not start with shares? You know, why not start buying into QQQ with shares? Okay, you can't buy a full QQQ. You can definitely start um fractional, right? But if you start training your mind to not just do options, what you do, what I would say with options, and I'm saying that because when I first started, all I actually was told about was options. So, you know, I don't come from a family that was telling me about long-term investments and stuff like that. So for me, it was just options, options, options. But what makes sense is if I want to build wealth or begin to build for my children, you want to start accumulating shares for what you believe in for the long haul. So while everything is pulling back, you don't want to just be stuck in options. You want to be building a long-term portfolio. And so, like, for example, buying the ETFs while they're pulling back from all-time highs, finding them and getting them in these nice order blocks. And even like I said with PayPal, starting to accumulate here isn't such a bad idea for shares. If it drops under that, then you know you're not going the heaviest right here because we haven't got the reversal. That makes more sense. In terms of a leap, you actually want to see the bigger picture for options. And so really, you know, PayPal could actually come down, like I said, a little bit lower. maybe even to like 53, but just be setting some alerts, some buy alerts. That's what I would do. And these are where I want to buy PayPal. I'm okay if PayPal just maybe doesn't hold here because this just makes sense to start buying here. Shares. Options, you have to deal with time decay, data, all that stuff is a little bit different. So I can't say, I'm not Chris, but what I would say is you just want to strategically buy shares. And then when it makes sense to get into options and go long because you've got all your ducks in a row and the reversals make sense, then you do that. Right now, I'm just not interested in buying a falling knife. Even on the weekly, look what PayPal's doing. But if I can get PayPal somewhere in these zones right here, I'm not mad at that. And as long as this low holds, then, you probably found yourself some good buys to accumulate. Go ahead, Selena.
I meant to say this when you were saying about buying the falling knife. I think I have a different viewpoint, and I listen to other people. I think, I think that why they say sometimes add to it when it's coming down. I think it's about they're looking at it from a perspective of it being on sale. And so it's kind of like whatever you have to kind of determine what are you trying to do out of this thing? Are you looking long term? Do you got conviction in the ticker that you're trying to procure? Um, if it's a leap, for example, you got a year, maybe two on it, and are you just looking to, get it at a cheaper price, things of that nature? So yeah, we often don't want to buy when it's red, but I think the what the pros and the analysts always talk about is they do buy red. They buy because it's on sale. And I don't know. It's just a scary thing because we're wanting to see green when we get in, period. That's just how we're tuned. But eventually you'll get to a place where you do want to buy it on sale, just like the money makers and the people who create these candles. That's exactly what they're doing. They're tanking this market right now. They got these big zones, buy zones on the daily and the weekly chart. They're basically saying we're not going to pay at that high price. We want it to come down to a lower price and then take the ride up. So I think it's just a different type of perspective. And so the gentleman that's speaking, he's speaking and quoting from Chris' perspective. You got to kind of understand Chris's mindset is going to be different from us. He's been doing this for a long time, and he's thinking like them. He's buying on sale. If you're not comfortable with that, then you just have to learn how to read the chart and see how you can try to get in on a better entry from like the weekly or the daily viewpoint to try to catch the ride up. But you're never going to be able to catch the full ride. That's just not going to happen. You just have to kind of determine which way works better for you.
I think that's exactly it because first of all, my account isn't Chris's account. I don't have Chris money,
Exactly.
right? So Chris,
Exactly.
my risk taking isn't Chris risk taking or any of these pros risk taking. Is you so what are you doing when you buy a leap? If you don't know what you're doing when you buy a leap, which means that you're willing to weather some of the storm and see
Yes.
this contract through because again, you're out about a year or so. Like, should I be selling my contract because we're getting this pullback? One, you bought leaps at the top, so you have to already think about that. Um,
Mm.
to me, strategic buying is on pullbacks. Now is where you start to consider your leaps. Or if you get a real conviction of a breakout, in my opinion, then yeah, you got to go ahead and get those leaps in. So now, panic selling, all they're going to do is just use you as their liquidity. You're going to sell so they can go buy.
Come on
You
now.
you're going to give them everything they want because now you're panic selling at a loss of 4,000 when your 4,000 could have recovered and became profit maybe 10,000. I don't know. Someone was saying like, "Hey, I weathered the storm in April on some leaps, and by the time it was all said and done, I came out green." Because guess what? After April was May, and what happened in May for most stocks? We did not
Exactly.
stop. We didn't stop. We this is April, right? On SoFi. After this pullback, I think SoFi reported earnings and then gave us a pullback. And then look
Hmm.
at SoFi from here. This is May until now where we're getting these more weaker signals because we're cooling off. So almost if you go back and look at all these stocks, go back and see the last time we did pullbacks between March and April, it was painful. And so if you were in SoFi here and you're saying I'm going long around January, and so you start panic selling, then you missed all of this recovery. Where if you would have
Mhm.
said, you know what, I'm in this leap, where would be my next opportunity to buy? Or I have shares, where would be my next opportunity to accumulate more shares? The 200. Look at the bounce of the 200. So remember, I'm saying stuff is maybe pulling back to their 200. This is the weekly time frame. It's even better when you get a stock bouncing off their 200 on the weekly because look at the recovery. So
Yeah.
panic selling on leaps, that's why I say I don't give buy and sell signals like that because why were you even taking a leap? If you were going to panic the whole time on some red days, then you're not ready
Probably don't need to be
for
doing the
that.
leap.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
not ready. So
And you gotta learn how to hedge because what they probably not telling you is when it's red, guess what they doing? They're hedging. They're recovering that money that
yes.
they're losing, but they're not telling you that. So you can do, what they're doing, just follow them blindly, but they're not giving you that full story. They are hedging these losses when they're sitting in those leads. They're not selling. They just sitting
What
because what they got on their side is time. That's what the whole beautiful part about Elite, time. But they are actually hedging. So they're saying, hey, while that leap is red, we're gonna play something different to cover that loss and try to break even regardless what's happening with that leap.
And I'm not trying to hear
okay.
all my capital was tied up because if you got all your capital tied up, that's another problem. You pro investors saying like cash aside is what you always if you're investing all your capital and you have nothing to even hedge when it comes time to hedge. I mean, like I said yesterday, $40 contracts went to $200 and plus. So there's it doesn't take a lot to hedge, but once you hedge, when everything is coming back to a reversal, you have built up more capital to buy more for your long-term stuff.
Amen.
Okay, we're gonna stop preaching here.
I know it.
Okay, but quick question: What does
Uh-huh.
hedging mean? What does
It's
hedging mean?
it's buying puts, or Selena is more probably forced in like what is it, cover calls and stuff like that. I haven't really started that yet, but it
Covered
just means
calls.
that's yeah.
Well, not necessarily just that. Hedging can be okay if you bought an option leap and you bought a call, okay, but the market is coming down. The simplest thing is to buy a put, buy
Mm-hmm.
an option that's a put to recover. Or, I mean, if you're in shares, if it's coming down, that's when sometimes they'll buy an option to cover whatever direction. They do covered calls, they do spreads, debit spreads. It's a million different ways to do it. You're
Mm-hmm.
basically just trying to find a strategy to recover the money that you're losing in whatever trade that you're in. And that's a million different ways to do it. So that's really what hedging is. That it's basically just trying to cover whatever loss that you're currently in.
Yeah, and so I was very surprised to see people more so focused on their leaps going red and literally missing the thousands of dollars in opportunity just shorting stuff. Even if you shorted SoFi, look at this. If you shorted SoFi,
Exactly. I've been
SoFi is
short
cheap.
so far. Listen, that's the only ticker I play right now. Short so far leads to the downside. I mean, once you start seeing it, it's levels. When it gets to a certain level, I just get in the put and
I've
it
been
just
doing
plays.
Rigetti, and Rigetti has been so good. So if you were investing in Rigetti, it obviously you bought at the top. But look at the downtrend. Even on these little green
Mm,
days, just get back in, drop,
yep.
get back in, drop. It's been pain. Another thing to consider is we'll have to start wrapping up here. It looks like we're bouncing too before data drops. But another thing to consider is when in doubt, y'all have to learn to use AI. I'm sorry. We don't like it. Okay, it's here. It's not really going anywhere. So use it to your advantage. You can go to Chat GPT and say, "Hey, the market is pulling back. I'm holding, you know, X leap or this leap. What is a strategy I can do to hedge?" It will literally teach you what you need to do to hedge your account. It'll literally tell you different things that you can look at from a different perspective. Hey, this data just dropped. What does that mean for the market? If you're not using Chat GPT like that and you're sitting here waiting for Chris Sane or any other pro to like hold your hand through everything, you're missing out on a lot of opportunities. You got to go get it because at the end of the day, you are the manager of your own portfolio. So, I can't, for my mentor, be sitting here waiting for him to give me guidance when he's given me enough to where I can go be at least a little bit independent for myself. So, what I encourage everyone to do is your weekend start studying. What the heck just happened? Why did we pull back? Do the research on it. Um, I'm in these leaps. What should I do? Where do I see things going? You can take a screenshot of a chart and give it to Chat GPT, and you'll be surprised what it can do for you.
Okay, so question with the
hmm
leaps and the puts, do y'all still have a stop loss on those?
for leaps,
Yeah, for your put leaps, you still have a stop loss on it because I'm thinking about selling this meta leap that I have and then just short puts on the way down to the gap fill at 550.
how long you have on your Meta?
1 year to December 2026.
Can I jump in and ask you, please don't sell your meta?
I was like, so I
Yeah.
think you might be overcomplicating a little bit, and that's okay. So you're in Meta until December. Meta could be $1,000 by December. You're having to weather the storm of a correction, considering where you bought into Meta. So now, if you go sell Meta, maybe you're down, a few thousand. You're giving away that, and then you're asking about like going into puts. Just get into puts. Unless you're saying you don't have any capital to even do that, which again, you don't want to ever just tie up all your capital to where you can't do those type of strategies like hedge. So, um, I don't know, selling Meta and you have till December, I would hate for you to do that at a loss.
Yeah, I was
You
just asking because everyone in the Discord, you know what I'm saying? Everyone's talking about how they lost 15K, 20K, 25, this, that, and the third. I'm just like, I have a leap on it. No one's giving me any clear information. I'm just looking
yeah,
for good information to see whatever. But like, okay, say for example, right, with RG Rigetti that I'm looking at, right, on a
this
weekly
is
time
Meta.
frame,
This is Meta.
we're talking about Meta. Or,
I just pulled up the Meta chart since we you were talking about it.
okay, but like, when you saying like, okay, Rigetti. Um, on the weekly time frame, when I do the calculations, I feel like, I mean, well, it's going to come down to $21, right? Is from the size of that candle. So, and I know it doesn't happen in one day, it happens in 15-day increments, things like that. So, could there be like, well, like you said, like a few bounces before it eventually was, even with me day trading, I see that the market likes to go up and maybe pops up and then it'll come smash all the way back down and then maybe it'll go back up sometime around then or whatever. But as long as like say the weekly is bearish, then will the next week and the week after that be bearish from the size of that candle, stuff like that?
I can't really say that. We could see, but here's the thing. Rigetti, if we're just looking at this example, is at the 200 already. Remember, everything is pulling back ideally to the 200. There is a gap. So I'm watching this gap. This is when I'll probably sell my runner on Rigetti. So you got to understand market structure. On the way down is not going to be just all the way green candles. Like on the way up, it wasn't I'm sorry, red candles. There's going to be those days where it pops. Look at this move on Rigetti. And then it failed to hold the 12 and come back down. Green candle day right here, technically inside, another green candle. So there's going to be, even on any time frame, points of where we do bounce. You got to look at the move as we're inhaling, exhaling. So on the way up, we're going to get a pullback. On the way up, we're going to get a red candle. And then we top off wherever we top off. It's going to be the same thing coming down. You're going to get these days where it does this and then it pulls back. If we're in the solid downtrend, then all you're doing is looking for the rejection and to re-enter your puts. That's all I've been doing. Selling at a certain target, letting it cool off, and then getting back in it. So strategy is everything. You really probably want to go ahead and add market structure to your studies to understand why we're doing that, why we're going like this, and then all of a sudden we get this and then the next pop. Again, I can't tell you to sell or what to do with your meta leaps, but you do, before you take any position, even if it's a day trade, you got to know what your plan is. Now, if you want me to help you see what we're doing with meta, from my perspective, what I was saying is at this point, if Meta continues to get weak, we already on Meta have lost the 200 all the way up here. And we've left a nice gap that we can fill one day. But in the meantime, we're getting closer and closer to this gap. And if there's no order blocks to catch that, or buyers don't start jumping in at that level, then I probably would worry. But yeah, Meta still has a gap to fill on the way down. So you got to think about, why did I even take this leap, and was I prepared to hold through these red days? And then if you're holding through these red days, then yeah, you probably will DCA at some point into your leap, and you just got to plan where that is. Like, where would I start buying more Meta to add to
Right.
my leap position? And so that would be some of these zones maybe down here. So I can't really tell you what to do. You got to have that plan ready whenever you even take the trade. I do have to wrap up, guys. We can pick up this conversation. If you need more help this weekend, I can see if I can open a live up. If I do, I'll post it. And we can do more study time chats. But this was a good little discussion. I hope you got something out of it. If you missed it, I'll post it on my YouTube channel, and then you can catch it from there.
Okay, that
Thanks.
sounds good. Good.
Thanks, everyone. See you guys later.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Have a good day, Renee.
You too.
Later,
Bye.
Bye.
TT.
Bye, nephew.
Appreciate you.
Bye.